So I'm going to try to debug what I am trying to build, which is font rendering with OpenGL. I figured out what the problem was yesterday, but it's not showing any text. But the problem was the vertex shader because I changed the position to vector 3. So the vertex shader wasn't working. So there's a chance that I don't get anywhere here, but I'm going to spend some time trying to figure out what is wrong. I think it's because of the image, the way that I'm doing the image. So another thing that I think I was wrong about yesterday is that I confused, because this part here is only gonna run whenever the font doesn't exist, or you can't find the glyph for the font based on the character. I think that's what's going on, because it's iterating based on this struct here. So I I was thinking for some reason that it would update each time, but that's not what's going on. It just updates one time. So I think what is going on is that it's building everything and then it's just making one call in the other function, but I'm not really sure about it. And this condition here is kind of weird as well. I was trying to figure out what it means. Like why puts, because it seems that it's only gonna add vertices when the number of vertices plus 6 is smaller than this vertex. But then it would mean that you only would run this part once, which doesn't make sense to me. Because the way that I'm thinking about it now is that it should run each time. So something that I did here was also change the tab here. There's a video from this guy that he explains how to do this. To make it easier to know which workspace I'm working on. And this video here from this guy talks about this. So I think I can show the render doc thing that I was talking about yesterday, because from last time that I've seen, it seems like it is showing something. So just choose the place of the path of the executable that you want to debug, and you click on launch, and you see there's nothing showing here. And if you go here, then click here, it's gonna show the information for the frame. You go here, then you click on the draw call, and then you go here. So you can see that there is something here, and other variations that I did, it was showing something like almost as if it's a picture, but it's just this, like, it's kind of blurry, and there's a bunch of colors. And this is obviously not the text that I have there. The text that I have is label or node label or something like that. So I have no idea what's going on. So the other thing that I tried to do was put this thing here, because inside of the function they do this. Because I translated this into the... I only got the parts that I thought that they are using. So I think I'm gonna try to figure this out from fundamentals, and then forget about what they're doing and just try to understand. So one thing that I learned from talking to ChatGPT is that the way that it works here is, I was thinking about it in the wrong way. I thought that you had to set the value of the sampler to the variable, which is the one that is used inside of this texture to create the image. I thought that you had to set this directly, but that's not how it works. You do have to set it, but the value that you set is not actually the value of the data. It's more in a similar way that the vertices attributes work, is that you set the buffers first. In the case of the texture, you're gonna use this gel text image 2D. So you're specifying to WebGL or to OpenGL how to read the data from the buffer, and then you're binding the image to generate the texture using this thing here, and then you bind the image, the texture to this this texture. So you call this function, you bind texture, and there is some other function here that's maybe it's after this. You call activate texture or something like that. Maybe it's on here. So there is a function that specifies which kind of texture is gonna be, like what is the index, let's say. Not really sure if it's an index. It's just a number that is gonna specify like how you should update the texture. So it's similar to the location on the vertices attributes. So if you have a variable that has location 0, then when you call the function to set the data to the variable, you pass to OpenGL the location you want to set, and the texture is the same thing. So the reason why it's passing 0 here is because, or no, here. The reason why it's setting this variable is going to be the one that is used there, is the sampler image on the shader. Is this variable here. So I cache the location of this variable inside of the other variable, and then I set this to 0. And the reason why it's 0 is because before that you specify based on whatever number you want. So I think is this, yeah. This is 1, but there is some other place there that you specify what kind of position the texture is going to be, or index. So because you call GL texture 0 here, when you set when you call this, you're saying that the uniform location is going to be whatever value the image 0 has. And then you specify what the image 0 is going to be based on the other functions you call there at the beginning to create the texture, which I think is these ones. So it's probably this argument here. The second argument specifies that is you're creating the structure of what the image on the location 0 is going to be like, and then later on you tell OpenGL that the data you're sending is to the location 0 based on that value there. But I still don't understand very well. So another thing is, as far as I understand, is this one creates a more generic. I think it's kind of like a template. You create an overall template for how the image should be, and then this other function call here is supposed to be the images that are inside of the other image, and it knows based on whether or not you bind it. So you bind the texture here based on the same number you use to create here, and this I'm getting from a struct that I have on the class. So here specify is very similar to the way that the attributes work. So this would be kind of like creating the VAO, where you specify the structures for OpenGL of how to create the data for the image. Then here you binding that texture, and then you are passing the data here for the sub image. It's kind of like creating a template and then updating based on which character using this thing here. But the thing that is kind of confusing to me is this X and Y. But I guess here is the data, but this is kind of the problem because I don't understand very well how the font stash functions work. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna see if the problem is I'm gonna have to get into GitHub with the anonymous tab. But I'm gonna see if font stash has a documentation, but I don't think they do. So I'm gonna have to look into the source code, I think. I think STB doesn't have a documentation either. Just font slash is a wrapper unless to be true type. Yeah, so I think the only way you should look at the source code. So I'm gonna look into what kind of what should be the approach here. The main thing that is weird is the vertices here that I thought, because the value seems to be off based on what I'm seeing here. The values of the position is all like minus something to the elevation 9, which seems very strange to me. So the texture seems fine, the coordinates for the texture, because it seems like it's all on normalized vice coordinates. But these values here don't make any sense at all. And these are the values of the position that I'm sending there. So this is the problem, because, and it's kind of weird. So either based on the code of NanoVG, it seems like I shouldn't have to incorporate anything that they do here with the other stuff. Because there is some stuff about fragments here, these things here, but it doesn't seem like especially this function. Because it seems like this is only related to uniform buffer objects, but it's not necessary to set the... One thing that I thought that might be the case is that they are... but I'm not sure though. Like, it's because they loop here, but I think that the only reason that why they are looping is because it's possible for them to have multiple different calls if you want to render text and other stuff. So before I was thinking that the number of calls is going to be the number of related to the number of vertices inside of the text. But now I'm thinking the way that they structure things is that they do one call for each overall thing that you want to draw. And then on this, they are probably passing all 6 vertices already. It would make more sense that this is the way, because then obviously it's more efficient. But I'm not really sure about this, because here, the most confusing part is this image here. So I guess this is one of the main questions: is how does the draw raise relate to... But I think it is the way that I'm thinking about, where the issue and the thing that is kind of annoying is probably something related to the vertices. That's the only thing that makes sense. And if it is related to the vertices, then I'm gonna have to understand what this stuff is, and I'm gonna probably have to spend a bunch of time looking through the source code of Font Stash and trying to understand how they built this thing here. Because the way that I think it works, and I think my intuition is correct, is that you set up everything here, so it doesn't matter. As long as set up before the images and the points in the correct way, then all that the GeoDraw arrays is doing is just consuming the data that you structure here from the buffers, and then rendering the triangles based on whatever structure you have here. So here I'm specifying the data, all the data, which is the number of vertices, and then here I'm specifying how to read that data from the array that I'm sending here, which is... maybe it could be the way. One thing that I changed is that this thing that before was true, but so maybe I have to change this value. Huh. I didn't see this. Because before they were doing with the 2D position, so because I'm trying to do with 3D, I had to change here to the offset. So maybe this is something that is fucking up there. But based on those values, it seems that it's more a problem with the magnitude of the vertices, and I'm not really sure why. It could be just because I'm not doing the multiplication of the projection, but it shouldn't be a problem, I think. Because, like, even if... Like, if it was a problem with the scales, it wouldn't be this big, I think, the issue. It would probably be showing some numbers between like hundreds or maybe thousands, but not down to the line something. It's very weird to me. Yeah, so this is the thing that I was showing before. It just shows this image here, a bunch of stuff. And it shows some text here that doesn't make any sense. So it could be the way that I'm adding there the image as well, the way that I'm updating the data. I think one way to solve this is to do a bunch of experiments, but don't want to waste a bunch of time. I think what I'm gonna do is move this stuff to the beginning. But the thing is that they say there that the reason why they do it like this in the beginning is set to, or they do it like this, is because some platforms don't allow you to set the images after. So what makes me think that is showing this part here is because of this line here. So it's setting this image with no data. And that's, so I guess I can try this. Let me comment this out and see what happens. So I guess it's an issue just because I'm not generating the texture. So what I'm gonna do is just comment the line that creates the image. Now it's saying invalid operation. Hmm. So the other thing I can do is create the vertices first and then pass the code there to pass this code to the other function. I'm gonna remember if this is correct or not. The size is the second, so that was wrong, so I guess this doesn't have anything to do with the image as well. But it does have by proxy, let's say, because the value of this second thing that I'm sending here is going to be used on the image. And I think this value is related to this UV here from the vertices. It has to be. So the UV is going to be used inside of the texture function. Is this value here? And send here through here. I guess this is the issue here. So I think this is the only thing that makes sense right now. The thing is, I have to do this one after I create the vertices for obvious reasons. So I think this might be the problem. I don't think this is gonna solve, but either way, I was already planning to do this. It's obviously better to set once, and then I just bind and unbind on the other one. But I think that the issue is something to do with the vertices, the way that I'm building the vertices, and the way that I'm setting the images. Maybe it helps somehow to do this. So I guess a good thing to do is to just write down the I need to look into the data structures that they are using to create the vertices. Probably the issue is the vertices. So the other stuff seems to be correct. Because I'm getting 60 vertices. The words I counted, the label that I'm sending has 10 characters. So it should be 6 vertices per character because each character is going to be 2 triangles. So I think that's correct. And then I think it makes sense to start from 0 index and then put 60 there. This is the amount of triangles you need to render the whole text. Something that is weird is that it seems that even though the letters are incorrect, it also seems that there's more text than there should be. So that's kind of strange. It might be because of the type of the text or something else. Like here it shows a whole phrase here and all these letters that don't make any sense. So the biggest issue is if it's something to do with the file and the way that STB is rasterizing the things. But I think it shouldn't be. So Because the question is, the one of the things that was confusing to me was this X form here, at the beginning. So I think it's like a template that they're using, but I'm not really sure because they have multiple different of this X form here on different structs, so it's kind of confusing to understand what is the purpose of this thing. I think I can get rid of this stuff here as well. So I'm gonna assume that this isn't the problem. I'm gonna assume the problem is the way that I'm setting the images. And I thought that it could be this thing here as well, but this is what I'm saying is that because it seems that this is only used on the shader there if you have uniform uh, UBOs, so like it is here. That's the only place that has this thing. I did look into this last time as well. This is what I don't get because this variable exists here on another part of the branch, but it seems that it's not used anywhere else besides the uniform buffer. I don't make it like I don't understand. It seems like it's not used anywhere else. That is relevant to what I'm trying to do. This is the thing, I can't really tell whether or not this is actually being used besides the EBO thing. And, it's probably gonna be harder, so like more work to decode this stuff and then translate, than try to figure out from first principles. That's what I'm debating in my mind. If I should just look into this. Because this is the problem. This function depends on this other stuff here. But I don't want to spend a bunch of time looking into stuff that doesn't matter. So I'm not really sure if I'm better off to just spend a bunch of time looking into font stash, trying to understand how. Then I might have to change all this stuff. It's gonna be annoying. So it's changing the first two arguments based on this other stuff here. I guess it's probably better to understand from first principles, like from just focus on font slash because I'm gonna have to understand this anyway. Don't feel like spending time. It's gonna be kind of annoying because I might have to get rid of this stuff here, and then I don't want to think about this. This is another issue because like if the problem is the vertices, then is an issue with the quads here. So this means that it could be an issue with the file that I'm using. But that wouldn't make sense to me because I think I got this file from another project. It should be like a good file. I can test with the other ones. It's probably not the issue. But I guess it's easier to. There's one thing that is easier to test. Hey, what's up? The concern that I have is that it is a problem with the quads or font slash, and then I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time just trying to like building everything. And that's gonna be really annoying because then I'm not. I want to spend time obviously doing the other stuff. Yeah, so it is obviously something else, but it's interesting that the image changes here. So I think this intuition is correct that like what is creating this stuff here is probably the first thing, but then why would it change the? I guess it's because of the position probably. So it's something to do with the position, I think. So one thing that is wrong is the tags, obviously, and the other is the place of the image. So I think what is happening is that in the first call it creates this stuff here, but because I'm passing no data, it just creates this like noise thing here. And then on the sub images, it's supposed to replace this stuff with this other thing here, which is not the text that I'm trying to render. So I guess one thing that's so there should two things that I have to clarify. Nice. I guess I can shift to. The thing is that the Z index shouldn't change anything to draw the image, I think. Because I'm already passing 0 there, I think, as the value. Yeah. But maybe it does change. So I think I'm gonna try that now. It's probably not gonna change anything. So maybe I should try with 2D first because it's an additional thing that could be wrong. So let me just revert everything back to 2D. This is another thing that I have to clarify. This is another thing that could be wrong. Oh, this is another thing that can be wrong. Is the type that I'm using here. Because from NanoVG, I think they use the alpha, but it shouldn't be like that's not gonna be the issue. But it could be like it could improve the quality there of the text. This is something that is kind of I still don't understand very well, because does this depend on the image or something else? I think that the only thing that makes sense is that it depends on the image, on the font file that you're using to render, to determine what kind of types is, if it's RGBA or something else. So I'm curious about now is whether or not this is gonna change the size of the variable. So this is another question: is how do they determine? It's based on the description there. It seems that if you use the alpha, which is going to be the GL red, you only pass two values, maybe. And RGBA, you have to pass a vector of 3 inside of the texture function. Well, this could be another. I think I am using GL. Let me show the. Yeah. Let me make sure that I change the shader as well, so I don't get the same problem as before. I don't think you should change anything. It doesn't change any values, I think. Or maybe it does change because of this. Ah, interesting. So maybe that was the problem. And it's still garbage, obviously. Much better. And this is weird. It only has 0 positions here. So maybe if I go back and it could be the red thing. So I guess I'm gonna change again because I changed from 3D to 2D, the value that I'm passing there. But it is kind of weird to me, like if that's the case, because the position that I'm passing shouldn't change anything on the fragment shader. Should just change the gel position. So if it is the case, so it makes me think that it's probably the type, the issue. Because the type changes the width there and the height probably. And then it makes the image to not overlap the... I think I'm gonna fix these errors as well, because it's kind of annoying, the warning. This is from Phone Slash. I fixed a couple of times, but then I changed the file. Hmm. What's going on? Oh, so it was the red thing. Interesting. And so the 3D things shouldn't change anything. But I'm gonna do like this until I solve everything. Then I add another. Because if I add now, I'm not gonna be able to know if it is or it isn't the problem. So the issue is probably the width there. Yeah, because here is just the width. So I guess I'm gonna look into their shader to see how if they're multiplying the color by something. And the result's gonna be this. Color, inner color. Maybe this could be something else that should do that. I guess this is the easiest thing to test, so I'm just gonna test these things. But it is pretty similar the way that they are doing. Like outside of all the other options, you're just multiplying the image with the color variable. And mine is gonna be white there. So there is something else that I've seen on some other shader where they just put dots and then a bunch of R's. So I guess if you're using the only red channel, you should do that probably. I'm trying to figure out why the color is red there and not white, since I'm multiplying the image by the white color. And after I figure this out, and also why isn't it seems like it's very blurry and not defined, so. And I want to avoid as much as possible having to think about all this other stuff that they do here, because then it's gonna get into the uniform buffer stuff. But I guess I can just change like this shouldn't be hard to change. You just add a bunch of uniforms and then you change the shader to incorporate those values. I don't feel like thinking about this now though. I just want to get some simple text and then move on from this shit. After I figure out the texture here, then the next thing to do is figure out the position. But the position, I don't think it's gonna be that hard to figure out. And so this is the thing, it's like very bad quality. And it's probably not the correct words as well. So let me look into the other options that they have based on this thing here to see if I have the same. But they do this based on the image flags, not the type. So I was thinking about the parameters here, because I remember I changed this to it was nearest from the code that I got recently, or code that I got from here, but then I changed later because I've seen somewhere that linear is higher quality. But it's probably not gonna change anything, that's the thing. Flame charge. Well, maybe I have to change, but I don't think it matters. I'm gonna change here. I think whether or not, like, it's probably not the issue, but I wonder if the way that I'm passing the data is also good or not. Because passing, this is gonna be the vector of structs. So when I get the data here, so maybe I should search for this. So standard vector data function. I guess it doesn't matter because I'm specifying that the size of the types is equal to the struct there. So just gonna convert everything to bytes, I think, and then read based on the bytes. So it shouldn't matter that it's a vector of structs, another vector of floats, I think. But maybe it does matter. I think it doesn't matter as long as the order you put the things are correct inside of the struct. So because I'm declaring x and y first, then it's gonna understand that the first values are for the position and the other ones are for the other coordinates. If I remember correctly, I think it's should do. So I'm gonna try it the other way. That's so to put the buffer functions there first, or maybe just uncomment these ones. But this was from the other project, so I think it's probably wrong. It shouldn't be an issue here. It's pretty much the same codes, just changing the data there. I don't think should multiply this by the length of the vertices. That's probably not the issue. So something else that I can try is I should probably try to use RGBA and then just change the condition there for the width. 'Cause I think the issue is the way that I'm setting. Like the color is gonna be based on the type that you send there. This is probably not wrong. So this I got from the other project, and this is probably the correct way. And I think it makes more sense to do it here than inside of the loop, because then it only sets once. So it's specifying to OpenGL how to read the data from the buffer. The question is whether or not to do this before or after the enable. But I think it's before, based on the other project that I was doing. So that I am doing. Because on the other one, they also set the buffer, this stuff here before, and then they enable the attributes after. So I think this is correct. So first you send the data to you create the buffer, you bind the buffer to this VBO here. Then you send the data to the buffer, and then you specify to OpenGL how it should read the data from the buffer. It's still weird that the position is showing 0 here. Doesn't make any sense. It's probably because of the... I think I changed the shader code. Yeah, here. So I do think that the issue there was the width. Because... So... It is what I was thinking about. The first call here creates that template, which is just going to be noise. And then the other calls, they fill that template with the images based on the tags there on the loop. But if you miscalculate the values of the sub-images inside of the image, then there's a mismatch on the relative position, and then they just show the tags there in the bottom instead. It's still weird, obviously that is not showing the thing, but I'm gonna try to solve the texture first. Makes more sense. Yeah, it's still red now. It's weird. Did I change? Yeah. Oh, it's because I didn't change the other one. That's why. So it's GL thing there. Let me think. Actually, I'm not really sure because I'm not really sure if it's based on the type, on the update texture. Oh, it's GL red here. Yeah. It's a bit texture type. I should probably change, I think. Yeah. But now there's this stuff here. Huh. So this doesn't have to do with the width. It's only based on the RGBA thing. Hmm. This is the thing, is that it seems like it is doing multiple times, sure. So maybe if I put the condition there, I'm gonna test. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me though. This is either gonna be true or it's gonna be the length of the text. Whichever is greater. Or length of the text times 6. So I guess it's telling you to stop on the last character, probably. It's probably because I'm misinterpreting, or the key is this function here, I think. That's the one that matters. And also, probably the reason why it's blurry is because I'm not using this thing here. So inner color, outer color. A. I think what I have to do is just multiply by opacity there. So I'm gonna do that first. The reason why it's blurry is because I'm not multiplying by an opacity, I think. I guess floats. That, like, it shouldn't change anything. That's the problem. Because the opacity should be on the color already. So it doesn't matter, because it's already one here. It should only change if this was the case. So I guess the only answer is to try to or print the UV thing here. I'll solve this first. The only thing that makes sense to me that is blurry is because of the UV variables. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's either the UV or the image, but I think it's less likely it should be the fonts. So it has to be on the translation of the fonts file to the numbers from font slash. But I don't see why that would be the case. Because otherwise it wouldn't work. Or based on the way that they did on NanoVG, they assumed it would be this way. And then because they are setting up the other values, the other variables, then they correct for that. So I have to understand more how the quad works here and how this X form. But as far as I understand there, it's just a template that is going to be used to... But maybe this is the issue, because this is going to be multiplying the other values here, and then it's going to store the result in the character. So I have to understand more how this X form is used on the BG thing. There's probably a way to simplify as well. And this didn't change anything, so... And it's still the same thing. So I guess one interesting question would be, how does the type on the thing changes the way that the image is going to be run? Specifies the data type of the pixel data. All symbolic values are... I think it's not this one, it's the format. Well, I guess it's because of the information. That makes sense. So I think if I do it like the way that I'm doing there, it has to be red because I'm only getting the UV values for the coordinates. So depending on the way that you extract the information from the file, that font stash does that. It changes the way you have to specify the format of the image. I think that's what's going on. So based on the example that I got, they are doing this way. And the reason why they are doing this way is because they're probably going to do something on the shader later, I think. So I'm trying to avoid looking into all the other stuff because it's not related to what I'm trying to do. And it might take a long time to decode everything here to these variables because I'm going to have to look into all the other stuff that they're doing. So this is why I'm trying to avoid going this route. I want to go more on the other route that it seems to be easier. Just figure out, I understand more how the OpenGL functions work and how to change the cycle there. So I guess an easy way is just test different fonts there. So two easy things is just to add these parameters here to see if it changes the quality, and also test different fonts. It's weird though that it's doing the other thing. I guess it's probably something related to the value there of the data. Like when I use the RGBA, it does the noisy images not noisy image first, but it has to do with this thing here. So I have to understand like how does this work. I guess I'm gonna try different numbers to see what happens. Or I'm just gonna comment this line out and then see what happens. It's still the same shit. Hmm. So let me try different fonts. And it's probably not the fonts. I assume that all of them should support RGBA. It must be the way that I'm getting the data. So I have to... I'm gonna spend a bunch of time looking into the font stash functions there. Hmm. I don't think it's gonna change anything though. Like, I was thinking about it might be just because of the offset here. I guess I can try just see what happens. But I don't think even if I if I overlap them is gonna change anything. It's probably because of the way that you have to set up. So, yes. 0, 0 here. I wonder what happens if I put a big number there. So I don't think it's changing the position of the data, it's just changing the nature of the data. Interesting. It just changes the thing here. So that's not related to the position of the tax. What if I do minus here? Let's see if I put minus, if it's gonna do anything with the, if it's gonna look better on the, at least the main one. So the weird thing is that is drawing tax in the bottom there, so I don't understand very well. So like that's what's kind of weird. Obviously it has to do with the way that I'm structuring here. So the weird thing is that when you put the gel red there, it just draws the tax in the correct position. But then if I'm using RGBA, it's just gonna draw that thing. So it must be because of the way that is reading the file. Like that's the only explanation. And is probably the way that I'm converting the points here. So I think when I use the RGBA, what's happening is that it's still drawing the points correctly, but they are offset there because this is not translating them correctly. One thing that I can do as well is just comment out this thing here. And but then it's gonna be just 0, so it's not gonna work. I can't comment it out, but I can try to change this. But the thing is, like this, that's kind of the problem, is because I don't see how this is wrong. Because it comes from the quad there, and the quad comes from font slash, so it should be correct. So I wonder if I comment this out, what is gonna happen? Right, I think I already tried this at some point. So I comment this function out, I think. Or maybe they didn't do anything. Because then there isn't gonna be any image to render. Yeah, it doesn't have anything. So I think I'm gonna take this off because it's really hot here, and I'm just gonna put the earphones, and then I'm gonna spend some time going over the source code for phone slash. I have to look into all these functions to try to understand more how they work. So the only thing that makes sense to me is should be the way that I'm getting the information here. It has to be this. So it's gonna be the way that I'm getting the data, and then this function here. Maybe I should spend some time looking into this as well, but it seems like there isn't any like major difference between when you use this type or the other one when it comes to the data. The only difference is the calculation there. So the obvious question is how do I know? It would make sense, like should make more sense that it does support by default, because probably most people are gonna use RGBA, so I assume that's not the file the problem. So the only problem should be either has to be true type, but that seems unlikely because everyone is a node library and a bunch of people use it. So and also phone slash. So this is the only thing that makes sense is the way that I'm getting the data there, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me now that should be the error, because I changed the NVG and they were probably doing in a way that takes into account that the data is going to be read in the case that they use that function there from the example. And then because they take that into account, they set up the different uniforms inside of the shader that are going to change the color from being red to being something else based on the shader code they have there. That's the only thing that makes sense to me that is wrong. So one approach is to either figure out how they do it and then convert, or to understand how phone slash is extracting the data and see if there is another way to get other values that represent the RGBA thing. And I assume that's... So this is another thing that I have to clarify is the coordinates, like, because it is kind of confusing to me. But I think, what is the difference between the position here and the coordinates here? That's another question. Because in my mind, they should be the same, because they're drawing each pixel inside of the image in the same position. Yeah, but this should be... So I'm gonna ask this. Dasher coordinates at which Dasher will be sampled. It is kind of weird though. It's not. It's kind of confusing to me because I'm trying to get a picture in my mind that clarifies how exactly it works. So the way that I'm thinking about now is that the sampler is going to be the image, the data you send to create the image. But then, why do you need the point? It has to be something related to the color, but if it's a coordinate, then how is it related to the thing? Because the way that I think is working there on the font stash on the loop is this coordinate here is going to be the UV from the quad that they send. So, and I think that's the reason why when I try to use RGBA, it fucks up because I'm only sending two values and RGBA is 4. But I'm not pretty sure if that makes sense or not. So in my mind, what I think I should do is just figure out how to get the 4 different values for the thing, and then change all the buffers and all the stuff to receive the vec4 instead of vec2 for the coordinates. But so I'm gonna ask ChatGPT because it doesn't like the name coordinates doesn't seem that it is related to your color. It feels like the sampler is going to be the thing that determines the color because it's the bytes that represent the image. And then if you want to color that in a different way, then you multiply by a color externally. So image should be sampled at the current fragment being processed. So I think it doesn't matter. So the other question is, what is the relationship between this and the gel position? This is the thing that is kind of weird because the position is going to be 3 points or like 6 points per quad, and it should be each point should go to the fragment shader later. Hmm. For each point, there is 2D coordinates of the text fragment. So how is it possible? I guess it's doing the interpolation thing. So you pass 3 points and then it calculates based on the distance of them. It uses the sampler to do the interpolation, I think. I guess the geo position is where inside of the scene you should render the thing. And then the text coordinates is just the position in relationship to. They should be connected though. Maybe that's the problem. So because I think that's what's happening. So you need to couple them somehow, I think. Because if you have a gel position that specifies one place inside of the visualization, but the text coordinates specifies another place, then I think you got into the situation that I'm getting there, where it's going to draw an image in some place and then draw the points on another place. But so I guess I should ask that next. Determine how the textures are mapped onto the data. So I'm trying to clarify what is the relationship between them. So there's just three different things that is very confusing. Is the relationship between the texture coordinates and the gel position, and the relationship between that and the type of the image that you put there. So the question is why when I put the gel red, it goes into the right place, but when I have RGBA, it goes to the wrong place. It has to be because of the position. So what is the relation between the colors, the color channels? I have to clarify this first. And once I clarify this, I think this route is better. It makes more sense than try to change or try to understand what NanoVG is doing. Because I was thinking about, so the way that I was thinking about doing, or maybe I will still do it this way, is just to like get something to work first, get the text the way that I want. Then I was gonna continue to work on the other stuff. And then at some point I was planning to go back and to study because I do want to understand fundamentally how it works, how is STB rasterizing the data from the thing, just so I have an idea in case, for example, I have some problem in the future or I want to change the tax. Then I'm gonna know from first principles what are the steps to read the data from the file and then translate that into an image. So I think that's a good thing to know. So I was gonna do that anyway, but might as well do now. Try to solve this. So this I have to clarify these three things better before looking into the other stuff, I think. Because like having a clear understanding in my mind of how these things connect with each other, then it's gonna make it easier to understand the code from Slash and how they are getting the data from the file. Because I think this is the issue. Is the relationship between the text coordinates, the gel position. And for some reason, it was showing some weird numbers there on the vertices position. In some of these variations that I tried here. And I don't understand why. It has to be because of these things here. So it is this calculation here. That's my what my intuition is telling me. It has to be because it's the only thing that makes sense. The other stuff seems fine, I think. So this is the thing to clarify. I think when I pass the RGBA, there is a mismatch between the texture coordinates and the gel position because of the calculation that I'm doing there to get the position. So it draws the image at one place, but the positions are on another place. But like it's kind of weird because if that was the case, then it shouldn't do that noisy image there because it would draw just the pixels or just the vertices in the wrong way. So I get like it makes more sense to me that it's drawing a picture at some point, but maybe that's it's showing like that because of the first image that I sat there with the no data. I think that's what's going on. So it draws the image, the sub image correctly, but it draws it on the wrong place because I'm setting them separately, which is not very good, I think. So what I should do probably is just combine these things, I think. So this is another thing is which is something, but it's kind of hard to clarify that I was thinking about yesterday as well. Like what is the relationship between, should I use the image there and then the sub image, or should I just use the image, the GL, the one that I'm using here, and then just pass the data? So like instead of doing these things here in the beginning, I should just initialize the texture of these parameters here and bind the texture. Yeah, but this is the problem because in order to do the other one, I think I need the data. So two updates there. Yeah, I need the data here. Put something else. What if I do this here? The width shouldn't matter though, it's the height that matters there. Ah, interesting. So the sub image is this one. So this one should be the other one. But then is also why when I put the channel red, it doesn't create this thing here. Maybe it's a difference. But I'm using the same type, so like it shouldn't be. Yeah, so this is what's going on, I think. So each iteration specifies the x and y based on the overall image of each one. And then I think it figures out based on the way you bind there. So because I'm binding the same texture here, it's getting the image that I set up here, and then it's creating based on the x and y of each character, which is determined by this thing and this other thing that comes from here. So the y, yeah, so it figures out this dirty. It's probably some logic inside of here that checks to see if the image is the data is still null or something like that, and if it is, then it flags as dirty. And then based on this, it's so another thing I can do is just do this here, but I don't think it's gonna change anything. So this calculation here, I assume that is doing this because it has to pass the data to the right. But the thing that is confusing is the y. So this y should be here vertically. So it shouldn't be x here. Yeah, it's y. I don't understand. No support for all of skip need to update a whole row at a time. What does that mean? I have to understand the functions is gonna make it easier to know what's going on. I am using the same format for each one, I think. That's a type there. Those are the variables that I have to change. Is these variables here? So yeah, I think this is the logic here. So it is what makes sense. So it checks to see if the, but then how does it do that? That's the thing. I guess it's confusing because the font slash is keeping track of the state based on the structure. I think that's what's happening. So, like, and this is kind of the thing that makes it confusing because, like, I'm iterating with this. So the question is, how does it know if it's dirty or not here? I guess like each time that you draw, each, each time that you iterate over the character, this function changes. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's like looping over the array that you create. So first you create the template here, and then inside of the loop, which is the iteration, is going over block by block that makes up the characters, and then checks to see if there was data, if there is data there already, and if it isn't, then it does this thing here. Yeah. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. Is this thing here? Like why adds to the like move to the right the data? To assume that this is going to be a pointer to an array that has the data. Because is this from the character, the current character, and then going to the right? So the explanation there doesn't make sense. No support for all of skip. What does that mean? Need to update the whole row at a time. Guess I can ask ChatGPT this. I think that the problem is not the format. The problem is the position, I think. The question is why. I think that the issue that I'm getting is that is mismatch between the gel position and the position. So it is drawing the thing correctly, but it's drawing on the wrong place. That's what's going on. It's not drawing the thing correctly either because the characters are wrong. So I guess one thing that I can do is just check to see. I want to ask ChatGPT how to loop over the string and print the characters. Just the label text here. I need to study all these functions. This is other thing that is confusing here. And then the other question obviously is why when I use the red channel, the position is correct of the image. So that doesn't make sense. So the only thing that makes sense is that the amount of channels that are going to interact with the texture coordinate, because I think that's what's going on. So when you use RGBA, because the way that it works on the texture function is that it's going to get the bytes from the sampler, which you set based on the image here. So that's going to interact with the coordinates, I think. And that's the thing. So whenever you have the gel red, it does the calculation correct because the coordinates are 2D. And the information from the bytes that is receiving from the font is supposed to be for 2D coordinates. Or, yeah. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Because it should be possible to use both channels either if you're drawing on 2D or 3D on the GL position.
The relationship between color channels specified in the GL text image 2D format, texture coordinates, and GL underscore position is fundamental to understanding how textures are applied to geometry in OpenGL. Here's how they relate. Color channels, GL text image 2D format. The color channels specified in the GL text image 2D format parameter define how the texture data is stored in memory. This parameter determines the arrangement of color components, such as red, green, blue, and alpha, within each texel texture element. Common formats include GL underscore RGBA for red, green, blue, and alpha components, GL underscore RGB for red, green, and blue without alpha, and various other formats like luminance, intensity, etc. The color channels specified in the GL text image 2D format parameter define how the texture data is stored in memory. This parameter determines the arrangement of color components, such as red, green, blue, and alpha, within each texel texture element. For red, green, and blue without alpha, and various other formats like luminance, intensity, etc. Texture coordinates. Texture coordinates are typically 2D coordinates associated with each vertex of the geometry. They define how the texture is mapped onto the geometry. Texture coordinates range typically from 0, 0, 2, 1, 1 across the texture space. Each texture coordinate corresponds to a location within the texture image. Texture coordinates are typically 2D coordinates associated with each vertex of the geometry. They define how the texture is mapped onto the geometry. Texture coordinates range typically from 0, 0, 2. GL underscore position represents the position of a vertex in clip space, which is the coordinate space where the final scene is projected onto the screen. It's computed by transforming the vertex position from object space through various transformations, model, view, projection. In the vertex shader, GL underscore position represents the position of a vertex in clip space, which is the coordinate space where the final scene is projected onto the screen. It's computed by transforming the vertex position from object space through various transformations, model, view, projection. In the vertex shader. Now, here's how they interact during the rendering process. Vertex shader. In the vertex shader, GL underscore position is calculated based on the vertex's original position and any transformations applied to it. The shader also passes along texture coordinates as varying variables in the fragment shader. Fragment shader. In the fragment shader, the interpolated texture coordinates received from the vertex shader are used to sample the texture using the texture function. The texture coordinates determine which part of the texture image is sampled at each fragment. Color channels. The color channels specified in the GL text image 2D format parameter determine how the texture data is interpreted when it's sampled in the fragment shader. For example, if you specify GL underscore RGBA, each texel has red, green, blue, and alpha components, which are then used to compute the final color of the fragment. Format influence how the texture data is interpreted during sampling in the fragment shader. Together, they contribute to the final appearance of rendered geometry with textures in OpenGL.
I'm gonna change this one more time just to make sure that is drawing correctly when I have the red there. Because it might be something with the width there or something like that. Yeah, so now is the correct position. Like, based on all these responses, I still don't understand very well what is the connection. So, the only thing that makes sense is the connection between the texture coordinates and the gel position. Or I think it's because of the quads as well. So that's the thing that makes more sense actually. Is that when you use RGBA, you should send different information for the texture coordinates. So I guess I'm gonna ask that. Yeah, so like all of this makes sense, but then why does it change the type there? Why does the type change the position? That's what doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense is the relation between the gel position and the thing. Or it could be as well that the information I'm getting from the quads is related to just two channels. But then if that was the case, then I would have to change the texture coordinates to send a different type of data. But it might be because of the values though. So here, what I'm talking about is the quads, because I'm sending this T0 and S0 from the quads. That is probably it gets from this. So it sends this thing here. Yeah. But it should be always the same values, so that can't be the explanation, I think. The only explanation that makes sense is that when I use the red channel, there is a mismatch between the gel position and the texture coordinates. Then the question is why. So I guess this is another question is what is the relationship between. So how is the position of this image determined? But it's gonna be based on the texture coordinates, I think. It has to be that. So the position of this is determined based on the texture coordinates. So it is a mismatch between the texture coordinates and the GL position. But then why does that happen? Why does it happen only when I have the red channel? My hash should be this one. So I guess I can try to. It's not probably not gonna solve anything. Maybe it's better to use texture should be here. Oh, already using this. Hmm. It shouldn't be the data though, because if it was the data, it wouldn't render the text with the correct color. Like the problem is that it's off place, not that it's not rendering the text. So it's something related to the position. So the question is, what should be the first function that I think I should probably follow this execution here. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to clarify. There is a low chance that is because the data doesn't support RGBA. I don't think that's the case. Otherwise, it wouldn't show the color with the text with the white color whenever I put the RGBA here. So it has to be something to do with the position, and if there's something to do with the position, it should be the functions here. So it is the function that is the quads. So I think the only answer that makes sense is that this is structured to receive the red channel, but it is kind of weird because so the only explanation is the other parts of the shader. So they design things to work on the red channel, but then why give the option there? That's the thing that doesn't make sense. I guess it's just the example that they provide here uses the red channel, probably. So based on the way that they structure things here, they assume that you're gonna select the red channel because that's the default on the function as well. So I think that's what makes sense there. What's great render? No, it's render great. So I gotta remember, I think it's here that they select the type. So they pass as alpha here. So that's the thing. So I think based on the example, they assume that it's gonna be the red channel. So they designed the things there. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. So I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time studying the font stash thing. It's kind of annoying, but I would have to do this anyway at some point. It's just frustrating a little bit because I spent so much time already on this thing and want to move on to the other stuff, but yeah. I was definitely planning on spending a bunch of time. I was thinking about creating a flowchart, and I think I did the beginning here, but it's always the trade-off between the amount of time you have and then what is important, because one thing that I know that people get stuck at, and a lot of people talk about it, is micro optimizations. So usually people tend to spend a bunch of time optimizing things that don't matter that much. and then they don't work on the bigger thing. So that's why I was kind of trying to avoid spending a bunch of time here. I thought about a couple of times it should do this, but then I went back then I thought no, maybe it's just a micro optimization. Better off to just use whatever library, and then I can move on to continue to solve the rest of the stuff, because the stuff that I'm trying to build is I know that it's gonna help me a lot to learn everything faster. That's the goal. So just increase the speed, the acceleration in which I can learn. So I'm creating tools to learn faster. And then that's the kind of the thing, because if I spend a bunch of time here, then like I'm doing things, I'm gonna automate this process that I'm doing now. So that's the thing. So I'm much better off getting to that point as close as possible, because then I can automate and I don't need to spend a bunch of time. But I think here I'm gonna have to do that probably, because I think it's kind of a waste of time to try to decode everything that they did here and make work. Is much better if I spend time, because then I'm already gonna understand the fundamentals anyway. So like it's gonna force me to understand the fundamentals better, and I'm gonna understand. It's gonna be easier to debug later in the future if this breaks down for whatever reason. So another point that's very confusing is this thing here. I think I don't need this. And the way that I'm thinking about it that makes sense is that you iterate over the font here, and then you don't need the length, because you're iterating over each character anyway. Oh, maybe this thing, I think that this doesn't solve the issue anyway. So what I'm gonna do now is just spend a bunch of time. Maybe I'm gonna create the flowchart for font stash, but I'm gonna go function by function here from font stash and try to understand how they're creating the quads, and what is this iter struct here. So this is something that I've been contemplating as well every time that I do this flowchart, but I still haven't thought about a good way to do this. Because what matters is how the data on the struct fluctuates. And I'm trying to think about what is the best way to go over like drawing the connection of the functions is helpful, but it's more helpful if I can visualize how the data changes as the thing goes on. But obviously, if I do it manually, it's not very good. So I think I'm gonna go one by one, starting with this one. I'm gonna comment this thing out as well. And the key to solve is figure out how to calculate texture coordinates the correct way. And this is another thing that I have to think about. And also, it seems like the letters are wrong, so this might be an issue. Like, it's probably... I'm not really sure. Like, because in order to solve that might be very annoying. Because then I'm gonna have to... Or I can find another... I can just find another file, maybe. Because if it is an issue that the font stash can't find, or the STB true type can find the information based on the file, then I'm gonna have to like try to change STB true type to do the thing, which is gonna take a lot of time. The fact that this tax exists here makes me think that the problem is not the RGBA thing. So the phone supports RGBA, it's just a text coordinate. Is wrong. So it should be the width and height there. So inside of the sub image, the thing that determines is the width and height. So why am I not using this thing? I guess I can try to do this. This is something that I thought about as well, and I think it's not because of it's not because that I changed the way that they were doing. They were doing like this, so I don't understand why they declare here and they don't use these variables. But I think it's just so they are able to call the function. But it doesn't make sense. So maybe it's related because it's related to the difference in the way that they are doing the images, because they allow you to have multiple different images. So I think I don't need to do this. I don't need to. It's better to just leave like this, but I think I can access directly from the font context the data. So I think that the X and Y is going to be the relative position of the sub image inside of the main image. So one thing that I can experiment here is just do 0 here. Yeah, this I have to understand what this is as well. It's better to leave. I'm gonna test with 0 there, but it's better to leave. This width and height because it is the thing here. So I assume that the third place in this thing is gonna be the right of the rectangle, and the 0 is the left. So I guess the width of the rectangle, the current one that is dirty. So I guess the question is, so this is one question. So how is this related to the, or how is this one? Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the headphones off for a little bit. I'm gonna put the earphones and just study the source code from phone slash. So I'll be right back. I think I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna do the flow chart for both of them. But I realize it's because I changed this a bunch of different times. So one of the problems obviously was that I didn't put initially I put the default values, but then I think I changed this class because I was gonna do it the other way. So I ended up removing them and then I forgot that I removed them. So this was one of the problems. Obviously, the other one is that they are using. So I guess I can ask ChatGPT how to initialize this as an identity matrix. So I guess this is another reason why it wasn't showing the correct way there. So the other thing that I realized is that based on this, obviously this is just being it's being called once. So this is creating a sub image that takes the entire atlas initialize in the beginning. I was thinking about it the wrong way again. I don't know why I keep thinking this way. That is gonna create one sub image for each character, but that's not what is happening. It creates one. So I guess the only thing that matters is the vertices here on inside of the loop, and the vertices, and also the texture coordinates. So it's extracting the information for the texture coordinates based on the glyph that it creates based on these functions here. It's not that hard to understand, but it is hard to know what to do now. Like, I still don't understand why the RGBA doesn't work when it is the red it works. That doesn't make any sense for me. But I guess what I'm gonna try to do is try a bunch of different values here, I think, instead of this. Because I think those values are one thing that I didn't get is this thing is like how is it possible? Because this dirty value here is not changing. Yeah, this on the thing, as far as I understand there. It has to be changing at some point, but I still don't know where. Because this 0 is going to be the one that is initialized there in the beginning. So the 0 is going to be the width. The 2 is going to be probably the final width. So because this is bigger than this one and the other one is also false, you shouldn't run this thing here. But so the only thing that makes sense is that the other functions are changing this dirty value. The iterator here is changing. And then once it gets to the end, then the third value is going to be the end of the image. And then that's going to make it so that it updates. It has to be it has to be happening because of the message here. Sub image created. So it is running. But I guess it doesn't matter that much. X is going to be 0 is the beginning of the thing. And I guess so let me, I'm gonna try, maybe I'll try a couple more things and then I'll stop streaming and then I'm gonna do the flow. Not really sure if I'm gonna do the flow charts today, but I'm gonna probably spend a bunch of time studying the functions. The main thing, I'm gonna have to sit down and think about this for some time to understand, because the main thing that is confusing me is how is the RGB channel related to the text coordinate and the OpenGL position? That thing doesn't make sense to me. I can't quite clarify at what point exactly could be the mistake there. It has to be, I think it has to be the vertices or the quads, but then it's kind of confusing in my mind. And the other thing that is weird here, obviously, is that this on the letters are inverted and there are 2 letters missing. So that's the reason why I was trying to put another value of the width there, because maybe they're overflowing here to the bottom. I'm not really sure what's going on. So I think this calculation here, like the reason why is like this, is probably because the X form value there, and also this is like it's very pixelated. So I think this I should figure out, because they do have a value there that I was just looking at. The should do anti-aliasing, but I don't think they're using here, so not sure how that works. If I go here, here, I'm just gonna Control F. I think it was one of these. This shape anti-alias. But it seems like it is not used on the tax. So one problem, obviously, is that it's inverted. The other one is that is not showing the true final letters, and the other one is that it's pixelated. But it might be the pixelated thing is probably because of the scale variable there. So I think the key to solving this is gonna be this function here. It has to be, and understanding more how this is gonna shape the thing. This is what's confusing me. But the only way to understand this is by understanding how the other functions are shaping the values that are used here. Because the way that is working is that it's going to calculate all the vertices positions based on this. And I think the vertex positions have to be related to the text coordinates. Actually, no, maybe not. Maybe the text coordinates is only related to the quads here. It's going to render the same thing either way. But then, like, how it doesn't make sense. And that's what's weird. Because if the only thing that determined the way that the tax is going to show was the values of the quads here, then it shouldn't show the tax like inverted. And that's what's weird. So let's do times 4 here. But I think this was for the RGBA, not the RAD, so it's probably not gonna do anything. And this is probably not related to the... You would have to be the position, that's the thing. And the other thing I can try is pass the width and height from this thing here. So maybe it's because it's just the reason why it's pixelated is because it's probably very small and it's just the methods that I'm using. So I would have to use another method, I think. I'm not really sure. I think STB TrueType uses sign distance fields to rasterize the fonts. I'm not 100% sure. So it would have to be... Well, maybe... Yeah, maybe this is the reason why the RGBA doesn't work. But the confusing part... I think that the reason why they have on VG the other option is probably because of other images, not because of the thing. That would make more sense. Yeah, because now I remember that there is the other library that I was thinking about using, and I think this is the issue, is that it's more complicated to do multiple channels with sign distance fields. So it's multi-signs. Uh, so probably the right way to do it with STB true type is just to put the red type and then figure out how to change the color externally. And I think that the one of the downsides is not gonna be it is gonna be pixelated because it doesn't have is an issue with sign distant fields that because of the nature of the fields it becomes it's not it becomes pixelated at a certain scale. I think that's the thing. So this is the library that I was talking. Yeah, I just remembered. So maybe that's the reason. So because the STB type doesn't support the RGBA, the information that I'm sending to the text coordinates assume that's going to be the red channel. But it's still not clear to me the relationship between the text coordinates and the sampling of the image. But I guess it is what so yeah, it's just because of the data. So because of the data on the image itself, the way that STB is parsing the data, they are not extracting the information related to RGBA. So I think that's what's happening. So when you try to use that and you use the text coordinates, it messes it up because there is this distance. But if you use the red channel, then there is the right coordinates because the data that is being sent through STB is the correct one. I think that's what's happening. So probably the best thing to do is to figure out how to change the color. But like this is another thing that's it's kind of confusing. Is like why is it showing the color red if I'm multiplying by the other color which is supposed to be white? So the final frag color should be white. But I guess like this is something that it shouldn't be that hard to figure out, I think. Because it's probably gonna be something to do with this thing. The other thing that's easy to test is to change this. So the main thing to figure out is how to invert the image and then figure out why it's not putting the whole thing. Because like it's gonna be annoying if the overall size of the image in the beginning has to be related to the size of the text. Because then I'm gonna have to create some variables or change everything so that I create the first image there, the parameters width and height, these ones, are gonna have to be dependent on the size of the text. It shouldn't be that hard either way, I think. But it's just gonna be more annoying. And I assume that the reason why it's not showing on the thing is because of the position. But the position shouldn't be that hard, I think. Sure. Once I figure out the other stuff, should be easier, hopefully. Should figure that out. It doesn't change anything here. So I'm gonna comment this one and this one out. I'm gonna try to use the eye width and eye height though. And I'm also gonna comment this out and change the shader so that's I put the get the R values here. Oh, so maybe that's why. is not because it's multiplying everything by 1. So yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So if I put the value of the red in 0, so this has should be the channel. The red channel should be the inverse of whatever I get here. I think. Because I think the reason why it's not changing anything is because it's multiplying everything by 1. It's not automatically white, obviously. Hmm. And then the question is obviously how can I translate to the because from the outside I want to change the color based on this variable only obviously. It's a lot easier. So I have to create some function that's gonna or like but I think that's not the hardest part to figure out. The hardest part is to understand how why is it inverted and why isn't it showing all the letters. Once I figure that out, I think the rest is probably easier. And it still doesn't change anything. So I'm just gonna try. Last thing that I'm gonna do is just I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what's if I'm using this variable to set the thing there. Assign distance from vector and shapes from this serve as a texture. Yeah, what I can do later on obviously is just change the library. Yeah. Change from STB to type to this one. So after I make it work, what I'm gonna do is just put on a separate file only the functions and things that I'm using from font stash and STB true type. And then maybe later I can change them to use this library instead. But I want to make it work first. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. Yeah, I'm just gonna test them. Maybe I should do all 0 here. Uh, just to see if it's not gonna show anything. If it's gonna be black. No, it still shows. Oh, did I save this? I think yeah. I need to see what the function returns. Or this function returns. Yeah. I think I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna do the flowchart, study more, and try to figure out. So probably next time I'm gonna continue to build this. Not really sure when I'm gonna stream next, but